Imagine building a life for more than a decade in a new country. You work a steady job, you pay your taxes, your children are born here. They grow up as American citizens. They go to school with other American kids. They play in local parks. They know this place as their only home. This has been the reality for hundreds of thousands of people. From Haiti, from Syria. They came seeking safety from unimaginable disasters and from brutal conflicts. They were granted special temporary permission to stay and work legally. Now that permission is being taken away, leaving their entire world hanging in the balance. The ground beneath their feet is shifting once again. But this time it is not a natural disaster, nor a distant war causing the upheaval. Instead, it is a change in government policy. For many Haitians and Syrians in the U.S., termination of TPS means their American lives could soon end. The jobs they have held for years will disappear. The homes they have built will be left behind. Families with deep roots face being torn apart. Parents could be forced to leave their US-born children behind. This is not just immigration law or politics in Washington, D.C. It is a story about people, mothers and fathers, neighbors, co-workers, who have become integral parts of American society. Their futures, and their American children's futures, are now filled with uncertainty and fear. Everyday routines, going to work, helping with homework, planning for the future, are now overshadowed by the threat of deportation to countries still in crisis. Their lives are on hold, caught between the home they have made and the troubled lands they once fled. In this essay, we will look closely at what happens when this protection ends. We will follow a clear timeline to see how decisions were made and when they took effect. We will explore the human impact and share stories of those affected. The goal is a clear, straightforward explanation of a complex situation. We'll examine Haitians and Syrians, why TPS was granted, and what happens when it ends. This is a journey to understand the real-world effects of a government program coming to an end. At the heart of this issue is a program called Temporary Protected Status, or TPS. In simple terms, TPS is a temporary immigration status provided by the United States to eligible nationals of certain countries. These are countries that are experiencing ongoing armed conflict, environmental disasters, other extraordinary and temporary conditions. It is not a path to permanent residency or citizenship. Instead, it is a form of humanitarian relief. It allows people to live and work legally in the U.S. until it is deemed safe for them to return to their home country. It is a lifeline, not a permanent solution. This essay will follow a simple structure to guide you through this important topic. First, we will start with the hook you have just read, which introduces the human stakes of the situation. Then, we will move to a detailed timeline that lays out the key events and policy decisions affecting TPS, Haitians, Syrians. Finally, we will focus on the impact, exploring what the end of TPS means for the individuals, families, communities involved. Hook, timeline, impact, connecting policy to people's real lives and experiences in a direct way. The stories of Haitians and Syrians under TPS are both unique and similar. Haitians were granted this status after the catastrophic 2010 earthquake devastated their nation, making a safe return impossible. Syrians received TPS due to the brutal and ongoing civil war that has torn their country apart since 2011. For years, these protections were renewed as conditions in their home countries failed to improve. However, recent government decisions have moved to end this status. They argue the original conditions that prompted the protection no longer exist. Many dispute and challenge that claim. As we move forward, we will examine the specific dates and details of these termination decisions. We will look at the legal challenges mounted in court. Those challenges have sometimes created temporary delays and further uncertainty for those affected. The purpose is not to take a political side, but to present the facts as clearly as possible. We will explain the practical consequences of losing TPS, loss of a work permit, the very real risk of deportation. Understanding this issue is crucial, as it affects hundreds of thousands of lives woven into the fabric of America today. On January 12, 2010, a massive earthquake struck Haiti, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. The 7.0 magnitude quake was catastrophic. Its epicenter was just outside the densely populated capital, Port-au-Prince. In minutes, the city and surrounding areas were reduced to rubble. Government buildings collapsed, hospitals collapsed, schools collapsed, countless homes collapsed. Estimates suggest over 220,000 people lost their lives. Millions were left homeless. The country's already fragile infrastructure was completely destroyed. The world watched in horror as a nation was brought to its knees. The United States acted quickly. Just 3 days later, on January 15, 2010, Secretary of Homeland Security Janet Napolitano announced Haiti would be designated for temporary protected status. The earthquake had devastated the country to such an extent that it could not safely handle returns. Forcing Haitians to go back would only add to the chaos and human suffering. The initial TPS designation allowed Haitians residing in the U.S. as of January 12, 2010, to apply for protection. They could live and work legally in the U.S. without fear of being sent back. For thousands, this was a critical lifeline. It gave them a chance to support themselves, and, in many cases, to send money back home to family members rebuilding their lives. Recovery was slow and fraught with challenges. Political instability, a deadly cholera outbreak that began later in 2010, lingering effects of the earthquake's destruction. As a result, the U.S. government repeatedly extended Haiti's TPS designation. Each extension recognized that conditions remained too dangerous and unstable for return. For Haitians with TPS, these extensions allowed them to keep building lives in the U.S., but their status was always temporary and could one day end. In March 2011, peaceful pro-democracy protests spiraled into a brutal and complex civil war. The government, led by President Bashar al-Assad, responded to the demonstrations with extreme violence. The conflict soon escalated, drawing in numerous armed groups, regional powers, and international forces. Cities were turned into battlegrounds, and civilians were caught in the crossfire of bombings, chemical attacks, and widespread human rights abuses. The war created one of the worst humanitarian crises of the 21st century, forcing millions of Syrians to flee their homes within Syria and across its borders. As the violence in Syria intensified, the U.S. government recognized the grave danger faced by Syrian nationals. On March 29, 2012, the Obama administration announced that Syria would be designated for temporary protected status. The Department of Homeland Security stated that the designation was based on the deteriorating security conditions and the ongoing civil conflict that posed a serious threat to anyone returning to the country. This decision provided a safe haven for Syrians who were already in the United States when the conflict began, preventing them from being forced back into a deadly war zone where their lives would be at risk. The initial TPS designation applied to Syrians who had been continuously residing in the United States since March 29, 2012. Like with other TPS designations, eligible individuals had to register, pass background checks, and meet other criteria. For the Syrians who qualified, TPS offered a chance to live in safety and stability. It allowed them to obtain work authorization, which was crucial for supporting themselves and their families. Many used this opportunity to continue their education, start businesses, and become productive members of their new communities, all while hoping for an end to the war back home. As the Syrian civil war raged on with no end in sight, the U.S. government consistently determined that the country remained unsafe for return. Consequently, Syria's TPS designation was extended and often redesignated multiple times. A redesignation is important because it updates the eligibility date, allowing Syrians who arrived in the U.S. after the initial designation to also apply for protection. These renewals acknowledge the grim reality that the conflict was not abating. For Syrian TPS holders, each extension was a temporary relief, but it also served as a painful reminder of the ongoing tragedy that was consuming their homeland. For both Haitians and Syrians granted TPS, the program was never intended to be a permanent solution. It was a temporary measure, extended in increments of 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. This cycle of renewals created a life of constant uncertainty. Every time an expiration date approached, families had to wait anxiously for the government's decision. Would their protection be extended, or would they be told to prepare to leave the country? This recurring stress made it difficult to plan for the future. Buying a home, starting a business, making long-term career plans felt like a gamble when your right to stay could disappear in months. Despite this precariousness, TPS holders did what anyone would do. They built lives. Over the years, many Haitians and many Syrians became deeply integrated into American society. They found stable jobs, often in essential industries, healthcare, construction, food services. They paid taxes, contributing to the U.S. economy and social security systems. They bought cars, rented apartments, and in some cases purchased homes. They became neighbors, co-workers, and friends across the country. They were living the American dream, but with a temporary visa looming over their heads. A significant outcome of long-term residence was the growth of their families. Many TPS holders from Haiti and from Syria had children born in the United States. These children are, by birthright, American citizens. This created mixed-status families, where parents have temporary vulnerable immigration status while their children are U.S. citizens. For these families, TPS termination is not just about parents being deported. It's about American children potentially losing their parents or being forced to move to a country they have never known, a country their parents fled. The renewal process, while providing relief, was also a bureaucratic burden. Each extension required re-registering with the government. This involved filling out complex forms, providing biometric data like fingerprints, and paying hundreds of dollars in fees for each family member. For a family with several members, these fees could add up to thousands every 18 months. It was a costly, stressful process, but the necessary price to maintain legal status and the ability to work and live safely in the United States. The year 2017 marked a significant turning point for the Temporary Protected Status Program. With the arrival of a new administration in Washington, D.C., the approach to TPS began to change. Previously, TPS extensions were granted based on a broad assessment of a country's conditions: political instability, lack of health care, economic devastation. The new policy adopted a much narrower interpretation of the law. Officials argued decisions should be based only on the original disaster or conflicts conditions, not on subsequent problems that had arisen. In May 2017, then Secretary of Homeland Security John Kelly announced a short 6-month extension, rather than the typical 18-month. He strongly signaled that this could be the final extension. In his official statement, he urged Haitian TPS recipients to prepare for and arrange their departure from the United States. This announcement sent a shockwave through the Haitian American community. The final decision came a few months later. On November 20th, 2017, Acting Secretary Elaine Duke announced the termination of TPS for Haiti. The decision came with a delayed effective date of July 22, 2019. This 18-month wind-down period was intended to allow for an orderly transition. The official reasoning provided by DHS was that the extraordinary but temporary conditions caused by the 2010 earthquake no longer exist. Critics argued the country was far from recovered. Haiti was still struggling with extreme poverty, political instability, a lack of basic services, and a deadly cholera epidemic. In response to the series of TPS termination announcements, a coalition of TPS holders and advocacy groups took legal action. They filed several major lawsuits in federal courts. One of the most significant cases was Ramos versus Nielsen, filed in the Northern District of California. The lawsuit argued that the terminations for Haiti, El Salvador, Nicaragua, and Sudan were unlawful. The plaintiffs claimed the decisions were not based on a factual review of country conditions, but were instead motivated by a discriminatory animus against non-white, non-European immigrants. In October 2018, the plaintiffs in the Ramos case achieved a major victory. a federal judge issued a preliminary injunction, a court order that temporarily blocked the government from implementing the TPS terminations. This injunction immediately paused the countdown for hundreds of thousands of TPS holders, providing a critical but temporary legal shield. While the appeal was pending, the Department of Homeland Security was forced to comply with the court order. This meant that the work authorization and legal status for TPS holders from the affected countries were automatically extended, typically in 9-month increments. For families living under the threat of termination, these court-mandated extensions provided a fragile lifeline, but one that was entirely dependent on the outcome of the ongoing litigation. The legal fight created a complex and confusing situation. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals eventually ruled in favor of the government. However, that decision was not immediately final. The result was a patchwork of court orders and automatic extensions that kept the terminations at bay. This legal limbo meant that while TPS was not officially reinstated, it was not fully terminated either, leaving hundreds of thousands of families in a state of suspended uncertainty for years. The situation changed again with the new presidential administration that took office in January 2021. The Biden administration signaled a different approach to TPS. On May 22, 2021, Secretary Mayorkas announced a new 18-month designation for Haiti. Serious security concerns, social unrest, an increase in human rights abuses, crippling poverty, and lack of basic resources, exacerbated by COVID-19. This new designation was a monumental relief for original Haitian TPS holders. It also dramatically expanded eligibility, allowing an estimated 155,000 additional Haitians to apply. While these new designations provided immense relief and expanded protection, they did not entirely resolve the issue. The very nature of TPS is its temporary status. The new designations will themselves expire and come up for review. The fundamental problem persists. These long-term residents, deeply integrated into American society, still lack a clear path to permanent residency. Beyond immediate relief, many advocates say the ultimate solution must come from Congress. A legislative fix is the only way to provide a permanent solution, creating a pathway to lawful permanent residency for long-term TPS holders. That would end the cycle of uncertainty and allow families to plan with confidence. Concerned citizens can make their voices heard by contacting their elected representatives. Contact your representative in the House and the Senate. Urge them to consider legislation that provides stability for deeply rooted community members. The story of Haitian TPS holders is a powerful testament to human resilience. The story of Syrian TPS holders is a powerful testament to human resilience. They have fled disaster, and they have fled war. They have built new lives from scratch and become an integral part of the American fabric. The ongoing debate over their status is more than a legal argument. It is a profound question about the kind of society we are. It's about how we treat our neighbors who have sought refuge here, built their homes here, and raised their American children here. The stakes for these families and their communities could not be higher.